The Better Others Advocacy Talk podcast is produced by statewide advocates influencing leadership SAIL. We want to thank our supporters Family Values at Work and J. Badger Consulting for making this podcast possible. We invite you to come aboard and enjoy this episode of the Boat Podcast. We hope you enjoy the show.
Welcome to this episode of the Boat Podcast, and it is the summertime, and it's really hot outside. Wherever you are in Pennsylvania, I think that one of our guests today just said their AC turned off for the first time, or it stopped running for the first time in days, which is awesome, which means the temperature's coming down. But I think we have a really cool, no pun intended, topic for today, and I have two guests that are great members and supporters of SAIL to talk about the concept of disability pride and having pride in your disability. And so with us today is Christy Sickter and Monica, who has been, I think, on 2 or 3 episodes now, but I'm going to have Christy introduce yourself first, and then we'll go to Mon to give her the floor for an intro as well. So go ahead, Christy.
Yeah, thanks, Everett. As Everett said, my name is Christy Sickter. I am the Youth Training and Leadership Coordinator at the Peel Center here in Pittsburgh. I was born with a disability called arthrogryposis multiplex congenita, which I will not say the full name every time. I'll just call it AMC. But that really, what that does is affects my range of motion in all of my joints and muscle strength. So I've had my disability since birth, and I also am a full-time power wheelchair user and have just been trying to really increase my own disability advocacy and just getting involved in this space and getting connected to all of the wonderful people who are doing similar work.
AMC, so that's where the name of the movie theater comes from then. Is that
we got a whole movie theater named after us. Look at us go.
and Monica, sorry, I didn't say your last name. Monica Albert Still. I should probably give your last name props, Mon. I'm sorry. Go ahead,
That's
Mon.
okay. Hi there. As Everett said, I'm Monica Albert Still. Everybody calls me Mon. I was born with spina bifida. Too many years ago that I am not going to say. And let me just say I am vintage pre-ADA.
Okay.
And well, actually, I'm even pre-504. So if you know your disability history, you can pretty much figure out how old I am. I am an advocate. I work with SAIL. I am on the board of directors for Disability Rights PA. I am also the chair of the Mental Health Advisory Committee, and I work 1 day a week at the Adult Spina Bifida Clinic at UPMC Mercy. And it's a pleasure to be here again, Everett.
Yeah, thanks, Mon. And I think one of the reasons why producer Mel recommended this topic was because July, when this episode drops, will be Disability Pride Month, which is, I know that Monica, works on initiatives around disability pride, and I think Christy, you do too, a little bit too, right? I think both of you do.
I do, yes.
You are connected to it all, right? So and so we thought it would be great to have both of you talk about what disability pride means to you, and then maybe even if you want to plug the events that do happen around our state and around the country that are related to disability pride. And so the first question I have is, like, what does disability pride mean to you, and how has that evolved over your lifetime? Like, how has that changed for you over your lifetime? So I don't know who wants to go first. Y'all can fight over that, maybe.
You or me, Mon. Doesn't matter.
Okay. Let me take a shot. Disability pride, quite frankly, wasn't a thing when I was a kid. Really wasn't a thing when I was a young adult. I was raised in the 70s And it was very clear that being disabled was different and it wasn't accepted. And quite frankly, there was still this mindset that there was something to be ashamed of, that it was something to be kept hidden. And it took a very long time for me to not be like that. You know, when you're told something over and over and over again, that it makes a mark, especially as a child. And the way I looked at it as I developed my idea of disability pride really wasn't pride. It was overcoming my disability, becoming a nurse despite the fact that I had spina bifida. That is so not the idea of it. And that took me time to get to the point where I am now, where my attitude is I live in a world that's not made for me. I do well in it. I do what I can, and what I can't do, that's okay too. Everybody has good and bad days. Mine just have to be centered around spina bifida, usually. And so it's all right. And so I am proud of the fact that I am a member of the disability community, that I live my life with friends in a community that has a history and a culture that's rich and diverse, and that is not like everybody else. And that's what's really cool about it.
Yeah, and Christy, Christy, before you go, I just wanted to say I think it's interesting to hear you say what you said, Mon, about like having pride in overcoming first, and then realizing later that there's a culture and a community that you can tie to. My upbringing was kind of the same way. Like I embraced being able to overcome, right? That's how I got motivated. And my introduction to culture and disability was through adaptive sports. And I realized that the adaptive sports disability culture is like a subset of what disability culture is, right? But then allowing yourself to be a part of the broader community allows you to see other perspectives. And then you realize you're part of this entire community that is diverse and amazing. And the way people navigate and overcome and be a part of something is amazing. So go ahead, Christy. Yeah, it resonates. Go ahead, Christy.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. And I think, Mon, I know you said you were pre-ADA. I was born in 1990, so I have grown up sort of with the ADA is how I always think about it. Like, I just always like, yeah, I know how old the ADA's turning because that's how old I'm turning. It's an easy way to remember it. So I sort of have lived my life with, the protections and the rights and everything that come along with the ADA. But I grew up in small town, rural Western Pennsylvania, where there were not really many other folks with disabilities. So while, my family, of course, was very accepting and all of my siblings and everything were, just wonderful. And, typical growing up with siblings and fighting and doing all the fun stuff. And my sister broke my nose once and it was great, great times. But it was sort of like nobody else around me sort of got like that disability perspective, right? And I didn't really interact with anyone else from the disability community until like my late teens, early 20s. So growing up, disability pride wasn't necessarily something that I think I felt, or maybe I didn't realize I was feeling it. I'm not sure. It wasn't really until I started connecting with that community that I really started to feel, pride in my disability, claiming my disability identity. It just wasn't something that I ever did until I was sort of in that space and had the opportunity to really share that connection with other people. So I think it's definitely shifted. And now I feel like I'm shifting, like, again, that now I'm trying to talk with those younger generations about disability pride and like promoting that, like, this is something like to really take ownership of and to really feel that pride in and like claim your identity. Try, you know, I know it's hard, but don't shy away from it. Like, really embrace it. So I just sort of always feel like now it's shifting for me. Like, it's still pride in myself, but now it's like also pride in seeing, you know, those who have come
Other
before
people,
me,
other
other
people.
people, right? Yeah, and then those
Yeah.
coming after me. Like, there's just so much wrapped up in it.
Well, and I think, Christy, so I know that you had the chance to meet Judy Human, and if you don't know who that is and you're listening to this, you should probably Google her and find out who she is. And you
Mhm.
had the chance to meet her and hang out and like be around. And
Mhm.
I remember being at conferences and like fanboying out
Mhm.
over seeing her in real life, like a person that did what we're working on doing now, or
Mhm.
being around Justin Dart's wife and his wheelchair
Yep.
as a young advocate, realizing who I was meeting and what I was around, and being so anxious and bumping into the chair and her telling me to relax because I was so anxious about meeting them. You know what I mean? So
Yep.
like,
Yep.
and I feel like it's weird to now be in a space where you kind of feel like you can be that sort of person for someone else. And I want to give Mon props because she doesn't even know how motivating her social media rants are.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I can
Like
agree with that. Yes.
I have to tell you, like, Monica, and I'll ask Mon first, and then I know, Christy, you have a little bit of a social media presence too around some of this too, right? And
Mhm.
so I want you to know, Monica, how motivating reading your posts are, even if they are like rants that are like, why is this so difficult for people to understand? Can't they just get this? But I feel like the more people that read those things and understand perspectives, the better it is, right? So I wanted to tell you, like, you don't even know that, but like I look for what you say. So like I it's almost like I seek it out, and it motivates me to keep going, even when, like, and I know, so I don't know, Mon, do you do that for other people, or is it more for you? Because I feel like Christy does it for, I know you do your Instagram and things, Christy, for like advocacy reasons, really. I mean, right?
Mhm.
I mean, so go ahead, Mon.
I do it for advocacy because my Facebook, and yes, see, I'm old. Facebook.
Well, no, but people
You're
are on
lucky
it.
I'm not on MySpace. Um, I I do it so that, first of all, people, my Facebook page, my social media presence doesn't just have disabled people, because that is like preaching to the choir that you have an echo chamber. I have nurses on there. I have doctors on there. I have friends that I've made over the years. And I think letting people know what is going on in the disability community is so important, because I have had so many people throughout my life tell me, oh, wow, I didn't know that. Oh, wow, I didn't realize that. People think that the government automatically says, oh, you need this wheelchair? Of course you can have it in a timely manner. And, and we'll pay
Sorry,
for all of it. And
I'm
no
belly
question
laughing
any
over
of
that statement. I'm belly laughing. That's hilarious. Yeah, okay.
it. Because we have to fight for everything, or they don't realize how little SSI pays. They don't know this. And until you have a disabled person in your family, you don't know it. And
Yeah.
also, some disabled people don't know it. And I love what Christy does working with youth, because I think I would have come to my journey about disability pride and being proud and understanding that I was part of a community had they taught disability history in school,
Mhm.
because that's what they need to do. Our history is civil rights history. Our history starts even before God rest her soul, Judy Human. I mean, that's when it
Yeah.
became more noticeable. But you know,
Yes.
that's our history. That's our collective culture. And I
Yes.
think that's something that we need to do. We need to talk about it. We need to be open about it. Um, so many things about disability. You know, when you talk about pride, it's about being open and out there, and this is who I am. And you know, the LGBTQIA community realized that long ago. We now realize that too, because for how many years did they have ugly laws, which some are still on the books, or we
Right.
were put in institutions? You know, somebody, how many times did I growing up hear about somebody who had a relative that was, you know, it sounded like they were keeping them in an attic or something. And even when I was born, my mom was told to institutionalize me. I have friends that
Yeah.
that escaped institutions. And it's this idea that disability is something to be hidden. It's something to be, you know, put away that you don't talk about. And so
Hmm.
that's, I think that's why people have this idea that disability and being proud is something unusual because we've not done it for so long. And
Yeah.
that's what is, you know, gives me hope, but it also, you know, I also hope that we can keep this momentum going because we all
Yeah.
know that society is still very ableist and um, we are nonpartisan, but you know, facts of fact, we have an administration that's ableist. So,
Yeah.
and we need to do
Yes.
that. I mean, you know, that's
Well, and
frightening
but
to
but
me.
but it even comes down to, I mean, it goes, I mean, and I feel like, Mom, we brought this up before, but like our state capital is not fully accessible. It is not. You
Mhm.
cannot get around it. You can't go to a place that is for the people. Like, and that's centuries old of different parties, different people. But yes, I mean, but right now we're living in a time that is highly ableist, and it's being promoted by the highest levels of our society, and what that is. And I agree that we like our pride is like new to the world, right? And we're learning how to do that. I mean, I think about what Christy said in the beginning, and I'll ask about your social media in a second, Christy, but it's almost like Christy talks about being as old as the ADA, and Christy and I are relatively close in age, but we're far enough away that I, like Monica, my mom was told to not put me in regular school and that I would never make it and that I would never be social and never be able to make any friends. And my mom was like,
Mhm.
"Have you ever met my son? He doesn't ever shut up. He doesn't stop talking. It doesn't end." Right? Like he's the most social person I know at 4. You know what I mean? To the point where they made me take an IQ test twice because they thought the first one had to be a fluke. Right? Like they were like, "There's no way that he can be in a school." And it's like, and so, but I kind of like joined school right when the ADA was becoming a thing, thank God. But like, there's so much suppression that happens, and people were trying to escape institutions and get time to be out. They didn't really have time to even think about like building a community. It was survival. And so now we've had so much time to build that community, and hopefully it does keep going. But Christy, talk about your what you try to do on social media and how that promotes pride and what that means for you.
Yeah, so I think it's a little bit similar to Mon. I mainly do my advocacy sometimes through my Facebook, so it's not just you, Monica. But
Yeah.
I also have an Instagram that I dedicate solely toward doing disability advocacy. And something that I totally didn't mention in my intro is that I am an occupational therapist. So I'm an OT. So my Instagram is disability_rights.
Yeah.
And it's something that honestly I created for a project, like an advocacy project I was working on. And then it was something that I really just wanted to keep going. So originally it was used to sort of raise awareness about WIOA and even just educating people on what it was, because I don't think a lot of people necessarily know that when you're talking about the different legislations that had been passed. But then I was sort of like, I think this could be a really powerful platform to sort of talk about, you know, not only disability rights in general and sort of doing that, you know, raising awareness and everything, but also bringing in my OT lens to it and sort of talking through, you know, here's how I'm adapting my own space so that I can, you know, treat a child when I'm seeing them for OT. And here are some of the things that I'm using myself that are really showing, like, it's like you kind of said, Mon, how you sort of had to like overcome and like show that you could do it. And I mean, it is sort of a little bit like that, right? Like, it's like, no, here's all the ways that I'm a fantastic OT. And like, yeah, I have other OTs that follow me, and I have other doctors that follow me. And I do sort of have a lot of pride surrounding showing the different ways that people with disabilities can really thrive in the healthcare field. And not only can they, but they should be, right? Like, they should be the ones who are driving these professions and using their lived experience, because it really lets you connect with the clients that we're seeing on such a deeper level. I don't think you can ever truly say, like, I totally get what you're going through, like, to someone, because I would freak out if someone said that to me. But I think you can say, like, here's something maybe similar that I went through, and here's how I navigated that situation. And hey, if this is helpful for you, I'm happy to share. So I think it can just, like, you can use your social media platform in a really powerful way to make that sort of connection. So I really try to not only promote the OT side of things, and here's the ways that I'm making it work for myself, but also, like, how am I using that to make a broader impact on the kids and the families that I am working with.
Yeah, but I think that, but to circle back on what Monica said back in the beginning of this part is, like, she said, I wish they would just teach this in schools.
Also, yes.
It would do so much of, like, we're building all these things, and social media is there, and there's Crip Camp, the movie on Netflix that I can't help but promote 1,000 times for people to keep watching it. I mean, you know, like, but it's like, if this would just be part of the conversation, a lot of the work that we're doing now would be different.
Yeah,
I think
would.
there'd be more openness to the conversation. Yeah.
I literally had a post that was talking about, like, normalizing talking about disability to kids, not even just kids with disabilities, just kids in general. Like, I was on the trail by my apartment, and there was a little boy, and I was going past, and he said something like, "What's that?" Like, my wheelchair. And like, I was just like smiled. And then I turned back and saw him again. And he was like, "Whoa, it's purple." And I'm like, you clearly have, like, you want to talk about it. That's cool. And so I stopped and I said, like, to his mom, I was like, "Is it okay if I talk to him?" And she was like, "That would be awesome." And I had like a little conversation with this little like 4-year-old boy who was asking about, you know, can it change colors? How do you take it in the house? Do you take it to a car wash? And like, just such innocent little kid questions. But at the afterward, his mom was like, "Thank you for talking to him about it." And I said, "No, I could tell also that you weren't shutting down his curiosity. And thank you for not doing that." Because like you said, Mon, it could be like, "Oh, don't look, like, don't talk about it." And I'm just like, no, please talk about it so that it just makes it more normal.
Yeah, so
Well,
go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Mon.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
They also go the opposite direction. All right. I do not want, I hate it when I hear of some disabled kid who has to stand in front of the class and talk about their disability. I think if you want to talk about it and you want to share what you want to share with people in a natural way, like anybody else shares, that's cool.
Mhm.
Your parents talking to the teacher about what to expect, that's fine. But this, the like, I don't know, it feels like show and tell my disability. And
Yeah.
that's not comfortable to me because that's not natural. That's shining, it's like instead now it's not hidden, but it's all you're going to see about this kid. That you're not going
Yeah.
to know that, Johnny likes Spider-Man and his
Mhm.
Spider-Man, he gave it a wheelchair. And so he pulls his wheelchair, cool, do it in a cool way. Let it just happen
Yeah.
and teach kids to talk to each other. They will, and that's what makes, I hate that. I had an instance where a parent frustrated me so much because she had her child stand in front of the class and talk about their IEP and how they got extra
Oh,
time on their IEP and on tests. And I'm like, no, that's not appropriate. That, and first of all, kids are kids and they're not going to be happy with your kid. And
mhm.
the other thing is that's not what you want to talk about. Have your kid, if you want to introduce your child to the class, if they're a new person, do it like everybody else does, and
Yeah.
you can do a sentence. This is my wheelchair. This is how I get around, and kind of go from there, but not this,
Yeah.
especially with forgiving with spina bifida. There's some very personal things that go along with spina bifida. It has to do with, bathroom issues. No child should have to talk about their medical diagnosis or the medical stuff that they have to do,
Right.
just to be able to get
Unless
kids
they
to
want
accept
to.
them,
Unless
unless
they
they
feel
want to. Yeah,
Right. Unless it's their
unless it's
choice.
the right
right,
time and they feel like it's appropriate for the situation they are in and they
right,
make that choice. I mean, I hold that near and dear to my soul that certain people get to see what this really is like
right,
and others do not. And you're a very
exactly.
special person to get to see that experience for me, right? Like if you get to see the dark side of what this is or the challenging parts, that's because I trust you implicitly with everything that I have for you to be able to
Right.
understand what that is, right? And so, but I hold that for me. That's a personal thing for me. So yeah, I feel you, Mon.
Yep.
The thing that Mon just said made me think of a in when I was in sixth grade, I had a teacher who every year read a book called The Acorn People, which was about I don't know, look it up, it's old, but it was a book about a camp counselor who went to a camp to work the camp with people with disabilities, and he didn't know what to expect. And the book talked about his perspective evolving from seeing people with disabilities as less than and then building friendships with these kids as
Mhm.
campers, right? And what it meant to his life and what it meant to his existence. And I was in the class while this book is being read, and I asked to go back and help her personalize that book to younger kids, right? So every year after that, until I graduated high school, I went back to her sixth grade classes and spoke to kids about the book and talked about wheelchairs and disabilities that way. But that's very different, Mom, than what you're talking about like, hi, I'm Everett and I have cerebral palsy and this is what this means for me. You know what I mean? Like it's just different. But that's
Mhm.
where that was probably the first place that I like started to feel pride was like I can help people understand this
Mhm.
so that the next generation gets it. But it wasn't like what you were saying where it's like, let's talk about all my deficiencies. It was like, hey, they read this book about this where they can learn about disability is like part of the human experience and then meet somebody that like went to camps like that or experienced life that way. And so, and we did a lot of really cool things. But I wanted to ask both of you, like, when was the first time that you actually realized that your pride could impact other people, or when did it click for you that, like, I'm really proud of like who I am, like where that comes from. I see you both thinking so deeply. Like, when did it click, or when did you realize like that you do have an impact on other people? You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
based on your pride.
I've got one that popped in there like right away. I'm just trying to like backdate and be like, is there anything before that? But this is just like, it's just like, it's an example that like really just like immediately hit me. So, whenever I was in OT school and I was on my level 2 field work, which is like a clinical rotation, essentially, I was at a children's hospital and I was there for maybe a week, like very new into this clinical rotation. But I saw a little boy in the PT gym who was in a power wheelchair. And he came over to me and he like looks me up and down and he was like, you use a wheelchair too. And I was like, yeah, I sure do. And just like
Yeah.
his face just lit up. And he was like, you have a little joystick and I have a little joystick. And like his mind was just like blown. And I was like, oh my gosh, I know, right? And like his was green. So we talked about like it being his favorite color. And why was mine purple? And I said, it's because it's my favorite color. And he was like, how fast does your wheelchair go? And I was like, I was like 5 miles per hour. And he
Yeah,
was
like 7 miles an hour.
yeah, he was like, mine goes 99. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like you're incredible. Well, it turns out then the following week he started OT. And so I got to work with him
Work with
essentially
him.
my whole 3 months there. And
Yeah.
it was just so, it was really the first time that I think I realized, being proud of my disability and really showing that like in the OT space and showing it to the kids that I was working with was really having like an impact. Like he wanted to know about the lights on my wheelchair. He wanted to know about how I got from the floor back up into my wheelchair and was like really just trying to learn as much as he could. And we would talk about wheelchairs and we would talk about like hitting buttons and how close you had to get to the elevator to actually hit the elevator button. And at one point, my fieldwork educator was like, you see so many teachable moments that I would miss because I don't have the same lived experience that you do. And I don't think about it's important for him to know how to position his wheelchair so that he can hit the automatic door button, and you do. And so just like those interactions like really just made me see how powerful
it could
using
be.
my disability experience could be, and just made me feel like overwhelming pride that I'm able to be in a position to do that.
Mon, what about you? I mean, like, when was one of the first times?
It grew over time because when I first started in nursing school, in my nursing career, I was encouraged not to tell people I had spina bifida. I did
Wow.
anyway.
I can't believe. Oh, good for you. Good for you.
I did anyway because I would have it was I worked on an infants and toddlers floor at a PD at a teaching hospital in Connecticut. And what ended up happening was parents were overwhelmed. They didn't know what to expect. We were telling people, you have to do this for your child, you have to do that. And this mom was sitting there crying that she couldn't take care, that her child was going to have no life because they have to do this medical procedure now for the rest of their lives. And I was able to say, well, I have spina bifida and I do it too. Fast forward a few years, I had the absolute privilege of taking care of a young woman who had decided to go to college, and she wanted, did a really wonderful plan for her over the summer between her senior year and her freshman year of college, her graduation and her freshman year, of having her how to live in a dorm, how to be on her own. She also had spina bifida. We put PT in, we put OT in, We put social work in to talk to the dorms. We taught her about, at the time there was, a disability resource office. We put all that in, and it went exceedingly well, and she went off to college. 4 years later, getting the call from her mom inviting me to her graduation is really when it hit me, the difference I made in this person's life. That I was able to put together, and there were some things that, yeah, I figured out because I have spina bifida, and I happened to go to the same college, but that made it easier for her. And because I am who I am and I'm comfortable with who I am, because a lot about pride is also being comfortable in your own skin, that I was able to impart that on her, and she was able to graduate. And being there to graduate, to see her graduate, it honestly is one of the most gratifying things I've ever done in my life.
Yeah, it's amazing how doing that, and that teacher that asked me to come back to talk about that book, we're still connected to this day, and she's since retired, but I credit her with giving me the first chance to actually speak it out in an impactful way that wasn't pointing out deficiencies. And I just remember feeling so much power in having influence over what was being done or how people were being supported. And that's kind of what you're talking about. You were able to help them get what they needed, and to see that come to be, and to watch somebody else learn from what that is, right? And it's to the point where hearing you say that, Mon, reminds me of my high school graduation. The guy that gave me the IQ test at the beginning was now the superintendent, and got to move my tassel over to the graduation side, whatever that signifies. And he said, as he was doing it, he said, "You did so much for this district." Now, my perception was, bite me, bro. Like, you told me I wasn't gonna make it here. You know what I mean? Like, but looking back, I think for him, it was like they had watched and they had seen what we were trying to do. And then coming to become older and then start to work with youth more directly and share my story that way, I realized that all those times when I was little, younger, doing that, it helped me get ready to do what I'm doing now. And so it's amazing to be able to help all these people make evolutions to be better people and to be better advocates and to thrive, and that they're standing on your shoulders and everybody's shoulders to be who they want to be is really cool. The last question that I have for both of you is, what piece of advice would you give somebody who's new to this idea of disability pride, that they realize they're starting to build that in themselves, but what is that like when you're kind of thinking about, I am kind of proud to be this way, right? And that's like a new feeling to them, or they're kind of struggling with maybe being newly disabled, or kind of what it means to be disabled. What would you say to someone as they're kind of navigating this? That's a
Well, I
deep
think you
question, I
said
know. All right.
it. You said it before. It's a part of being human. Everyone, at some point in their life, whether it's temporary or whether it is long term, or like some of us, our entire lives,
Forever.
forever,
That's all you know.
can become disabled. And I think the important thing is that you don't have to do some kind of tremendous event. You don't have to be someone who is out there all the time. You can instill pride in other people. You can instill pride in yourself just by living your life authentically, just by living your life the way that is best for you and your disability, to listen to your inner voice and to know what's there. Because sometimes, yes, you should listen to people and take their suggestions, but sometimes they're not the right suggestions. So maybe learning how to discern which is right for you and which is not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that, Mon. I think I think if it's maybe someone who is new to having a disability, or someone who's maybe just not quite comfortable with, owning their disability identity yet, then I think my advice to them would be to not feel bad about that and to not put too much blame on themselves about that. Because especially if it's an acquired disability, then yeah, it's probably going to take you a bit to really feel comfortable. Like Mon said, feel comfortable in your own skin. Like that's not going to be immediate. So I would say, like, don't add on to that by putting this like guilt or anything that you're not like a disability advocate day one. Like, don't feel bad about that. But as you start to come into feeling more comfortable and feeling more of that sense of pride, and you get more confident in that, then don't be afraid to seek out the spaces where you can really let that show through. So it goes back to finding that community, right? So make connections with, even if it's just one other person who you might know who has a disability. Odds are they know two other people who have a disability, and you can sort of start to grow this community around yourself that's really going to help bolster you and help you to feel even more confident. And then you're gonna, again, those transitions, right? Once you start building all of that up for yourself, you're going to be in spaces where then you can start to do that for other people too. And you're going to feel all of the pride that comes along with doing that for someone else. So
yeah, it's talking about what Monica was just saying about like how there's so much pride in lifting someone else up to go somewhere else or be, or to know that your impact is what it is. Right?
Yep,
Yeah,
exactly. So yeah, just
so
don't shy away from those opportunities when you feel ready to start taking them on.
well, and it is saying yes to opportunities too, right? It's like,
Yeah.
and I feel like that's the other part to this, and the other part that kind of Monica was alluding, like, hey, like somebody might make a suggestion, but that might not be the best suggestion.
Yeah.
And I feel like if you really want to do something and people are telling you you can't do it or you shouldn't do it,
Mm-hmm.
you should try to find a way to do it because
Yeah.
you're gonna live a better life for yourself that
Mm-hmm.
way, and
Yeah.
you'll probably prove them wrong. I'm not saying put yourself in danger, but it's like, you know what I mean? Like I just took my daughter to Disney World for the first time in my life, and I went all the way in on everything that I could do from a disability perspective, and I had the best time. And
Mm-hmm.
people were being naysayers about the experience, and I just went in with the attitude that I'm going to do all that I can do to make sure that me and my kid have the best time that I can have. And that meant that I was transferring places I typically wouldn't want to do. I just said I have to have a different mindset about possibilities and not so much about what can't be done here. And so it kind of opened my eyes to like, you have to take opportunities. And if you really want to do something, just try and do it. And don't always listen to all the people that say it can't be or it shouldn't be,
Mm-hmm.
because everybody on this call, including producer Mel, has has had an experience where somebody said you shouldn't do this or you can't do this, and you prove them wrong anyway. And that also, the overcoming part is a part of the pride too. So I know we kind of said like it starts there, but you can help build up yourself and others if you can help them see what is possible that way. And before we leave, I want to give you guys a chance to promote Disability Pride and all the work and the events that are happening. If you want to give, I don't know if you have dates for all of them or not. I think the one in Pittsburgh is in September, right? I hope I'm right.
Yeah.
My God. Okay. I hope I'm right.
Yep.
Because I don't live there. So go ahead.
Yes, the Disability Pride Parade in Pittsburgh is at September 20th from 11 to 4 at Shenley Plaza.
Are there others that are happening though? I know, aren't there others that happen in around the state, or don't you know when those are yet? I could be doing a really bad job of promoting these for you.
You see, you're talking to two Pittsburgh people,
I was
so
gonna
I don't
say,
always remember
Remember all
what
the other
else is
ones?
going
Okay.
on. But there is a website, Disability Pride, PA.org. And if you go there, it lists all the different disability prides that that's there. And there is also on July 25th, it's a
Mhm.
Friday. It's from 12 to 4, and it's celebrating the ADA. And it is being held with the Mid-State ADA Counselor Conference. I never remember the name
I think
exactly.
council. I think it's council.
Council, and it is taking place at Duquesne.
Mhm.
And you do have to register for that. And if you go on Facebook and type that in, you can get that information. And it looks like it's going to be interesting. It's going to be talking about, since it is UPMC is involved, it will be talking about healthcare and disability in the workplace of healthcare,
Mhm.
which is a topic near and dear to both our hearts.
Yes. I'm curious, Mon. Are you on the panel for that afternoon? Because I am on a panel during that afternoon.
No, I am not.
Oh, maybe you should
Yeah.
be. Maybe I should. Maybe I should talk to some people.
Invite her there. And I did, just as we were sitting here, Google Disability Pride PA to pull up some of the dates, and it looks like the events that happened in Harrisburg and Philly already happened in the spring and early June. But it looks like typically the events are in Harrisburg, Philadelphia, and there's one in Williamsport and Pittsburgh. And the one that's in Williamsport is happening on the ADA's birthday in Williamsport on July 26th,
Nice.
2025. And the one
Awesome.
in Pittsburgh is September 20th. So if you're listening to this and you want to get involved, they are really cool events. And I love that it's spreading out to all these different places and that it's got so much momentum and continues to. So thank you both for your time. I hope you can
Thank
connect to
you.
do more panels and do more things together because you are fantastic guests. And thanks so much for being here.